Hello, my name is Arnie Herz, and welcome to Habits of a Whole Heart as part of the Humanity Matters series here at the Holocaust Memorial Tolerance Center in Glen Cove, New York. I am now here for my second episode with my longtime dear friend, Phylicia Rashad, who just gave a magnificent first podcast episode that was completely spontaneous. We'd prepared a few topics, and I don't think we covered any of them. And so in the second episode, we're just going to continue talking as friends, and trying to bring out your wisdom and what you've shared. But in this episode, I want to focus a little bit on legacy. And Habits of a Whole Heart is, in effect, two dimensions. If you imagine a grid, from west to east is self-improvement. How do I be a better actor? How do I be a better director? How do I be a better lawyer, a better golfer, which is a really tough one. And it's improving oneself. The north-south axis, from south to north, is how do I be a better human being? And when we can combine being the best self with the best human being, that's really what I call level 3 living, where people are really living at their highest capacity. And so there's a series of habits that helps us get to that point. You shared about stillness and quietude in the last episode, which is very powerful. But as a director, of course, you are an acclaimed actress, one of the most famous actresses of all time, TV, theater, movie, and now you've become a director. And in directorship, it's a different focus because it's not about you, it's about how do you get the actors to unlock their potential. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, let me just say this about directing. Actors are one part of it, but not the only part. And yes, as an actor, you focus on the character that you're portraying, finding the truth in that character and working with the company. As the director, first thing is to come to an understanding of the playwright's intention. And to hold a vision for presenting that intention. Then you collaborate with your creative team. And you collaborate with the actors. And you leave room. You collaborate with them to create an alignment with that vision while leaving room for these artists to contribute that which you did not see, so that everyone has ownership in the vision. Everyone has ownership in the presentation. That's how I view directing. That's how I see directing. And it's wonderful because collaboration is great. I never feel or even approach the work, and some will take issue with this, and I understand it, and it's okay, of starting out by telling people what to do. No. I ask. I want to know, what is it that you see? Then that's presented, and I'll say, okay, well, what would happen if? And then we begin to work together to shape and mold it. That's how I work as a director, and that's how I work with actors. Seldom do I tell an actor what to do.
I love that's an extraordinary leadership style.
Yeah.
Because it's what it is that you're lighting the fire within the actor to find it within themselves. So as you said, ownership, agency, and you're taking in what they're saying, but you're not just accepting it, you're shaping it. And you see, and what I thought was really interesting, you talk about, well, what was the playwright's intention? What did they want? How do I hold integrity here to really bring them out in the best possible light? And so in a sense, you're like a conductor in an orchestra of bringing out the best in everyone?
Oh, and working together to do that. And so I come to this as an actor because one of the things I've seen and learned as a performer is that no matter what you think you know or think you know about what it is you think you're doing, there's always more. Because the other part of the collaboration is the audience. No matter what you think you've presented, the audience has its perception. That's your other collaborator. That's you invite them in, but you don't tell them what to think. It's such a creative high for me to work in this way.
Why do you think that is?
Well, again, I'm following my mother's example of openness. In workshops and open fields that we talked about, there was openness. There was openness in space. There was openness in choice. There was openness in participation for the young people to come through. The artists who were teachers were not being mandated or regulated. They were doing what they did best and presenting that. Openness is not wild and frenzied and chaotic. It's simply open.
I would surmise, as I'm listening to you, is that directing the way you do and the openness that your mother had created recognizes the divine spark in every human being, with their own infinite potential that you shared in the last episode. And you're igniting that. You're allowing that to take shape. And when that happens, it's not just them, but the collaboration, it becomes a we. It becomes something bigger, and that touches the unification, the ultimate unified consciousness, that even though I'm sitting here and you're sitting there on a quantum physics level, we're just one energy system, part of the same thing. And when you're able to manifest that through your directing, I suspect that creates that transcendental thrill that you get, that sense of wholeness that's a different doorway from the stillness.
It is. It is. It is. It absolutely it is. It's wonderful to see an electrician feel ownership. It's wonderful to have a stage manager feel ownership. It's wonderful to have a designer feel ownership. It is absolutely wonderful to have actors feel ownership through collaboration, not through being off isolated, thinking of something to do that's going to get a laugh or going to make people like you. And it's that coming together, working together. It's the way to work, and it's also the way to live. Just think about it. People working and living together in this way with respect for one another. Real respect for one another. Because there's an understanding that what's inside me that's light is inside everyone. Isn't that respecting one's own self? To respect other people in this way.
It's beautiful. And when we see the light in somebody else, we're really seeing the light in ourselves, because we're recognizing the connection that's very deep. And I'm thinking about how we're living, so much of society today is living in chaos and confusion and tremendous dissatisfaction. There's many people who have abundance and wealth, civilization that was inconceivable even 100 years ago. And of course, there's many people that are still struggling. But we're living in a much more individual, atomistic existence. And what I'm hearing from you in theater, directing, charitable endeavors, you are part of something much bigger. And when we give something and we're connected to something much bigger, it moves away that sense of isolation. In my book, Chapter 6, a book that hopefully we'll have out in the fall, is about the importance of community, and that how all these studies show the sense of isolation and lack of meaning, lack of purpose. If you find the right community, whether it's a theater group or a musical group or a charitable group, and where you're able to bring out your best and collaborate with others, by definition, it's completely uplifting. And that's what I hear you talking about here.
There are people like this all over the world, though, you know, and they do whatever they do in wherever they are. When you look at, let's say, if you look at those people who, let's say, donate time to a school after hours, they just go in to do something with, I mean, that's the same principle. That's the same thing. When you look at people who donate their time to hospitals, when you look at people who actually create agencies for elderly people, for homeless people, for people who are challenged with medical needs. Or when you look at people who just keep a community clean and keep it looking
right,
good, you know, feeling like that. People are doing this all the time. It's not like it's not being done. It's just that our attention seems to be focused on something else. So I know I don't have power over everything, but I can at least determine which way I turn my head. And we all have that power.
So I just want to emphasize that. You pulled up in the car. You got out of the car. You were on the phone. First of all, you thanked the driver. You were finishing up a phone call, very politely said, I'm here at my event. And then there was about a half a dozen women who were docents, who had lived full lives, and were there, and they saw you, and they were so excited to see you. And instead of rushing or anything, you went over to them, you greeted each one with a smile, serenity, connected with them. You walked through to here, meeting several people, and your presence of just what you're talking about, you manifest. And I've been with you over the years. I've never seen you harried. You always care about people and connect to people. Not one of these actresses who are just nasty to people. And it's a real credit to you to bring this in, and I'm sure it makes people feel incredibly valued and important.
People matter. You know, people count.
So I want to pivot. We talked about your mother, talked about you, and your next generation, who I've been privileged to know, is your daughter, Condola.
Yes.
Condola, who is an actress in her own right on Billions. She was Juliet in Romeo and Juliet on Broadway, and as a musician and a healer and all these different endeavors. And I'm fortunate to be her lawyer as well. And we talk, I think I talk with Condola more than I talk with you right now.
I think you do.
And she's just a brilliant light and trying to bring healing. And so some of these same principles that I could see from your mother to you to her, of wanting to be involved in a business that helps people in the healing arts, in the music arts. So if you have any thoughts on what it was like to be a mother, to pass on these great qualities?
Yeah. Just living, living the way I was taught to live. My mother took us everywhere. She took us to lectures. She said, "Oh, I knew you were too young to understand that. But it was important that you would be exposed to it because a seed would be planted." She would do that. So I took Phylicia everywhere. And she was an infant in the studio. I mean, I would leave the set to go and nurse her.
Right.
She grew up like that. She grew up watching me work. And so what was important to her was not that I was being seen by a lot of people. What was important to her was the work. That's what she grew up watching. And it was always about the work. When she was 3 years old, she said, "Mommy, I need a reading teacher, a writing teacher, and a piano teacher. Can you get me those things?" She was 3 years old asking for instruction.
Wow.
But children do this. I mean, I watched one of my grandchildren. Kiva's little boy.
Okay.
She has a little grandbaby. Jaden Messiah is his name.
What a beautiful name.
He's a beautiful boy. And in a visit to her home, we were all laughing and talking at the table, all the adults. And he came with a book and he said, Can somebody help me read this? Of all the things he could have asked for, this is what he was asking for. And this is what children will do. So when I looked at that, I thought, okay. And I thought about my mother because that's what she provided us as children. She provided us with instruction in the things she saw we were interested in. Children will tell you if you just listen. Mama used to say, if people knew the truth, if they only knew the truth, they would understand that children are their best form of entertainment. And isn't that the truth?
That's the truth. Well, I certainly experienced that as a dad. Kids were so happy when I would come home.
Yes.
I was like,
yes, they really are. They really are our best form of entertainment.
I can't believe you're a grandmother, and I can't believe I'm a grandfather.
Hey.
How did that happen? When did this all happen?
We weren't looking. It's beautiful, isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, it's spectacular. And my daughter Rebecca, and who you knew when she was born.
Yes,
you were right there.
Yep.
And it's really, she feels very close to you. And when the baby was born, we thought about you. So it's great being a grandfather. He's not ready to read yet, although we're reading to him. He's 7 months old.
That's right.
But this goes back to parenting of you had this incredibly busy schedule. You're on the Cosby Show. You had a million obligations, and yet you brought Phylicia with you. Mm-hmm. You parented. You made sure that was a priority. She wasn't a latchkey kid. She knew that she mattered, and you put a lot of time and energy into her. And I think that it's two things, what your mother was teaching you, which is freedom and discipline. And the two go hand in hand. Mm. My rabbi was the first guest I had on here. Ooh. And he said something that I think will resonate with you, which is that people think that discipline is like imprisonment, that you're in a cage. He said, but it really is. It's that which frees you to be who you're really meant to be. So your mother gave you lots of freedom, and she told you got to sit for an hour. Your mother gave you lots of freedom, but she had certain expectations that you internalized about doing art and music and your homework and studies and behaving in a certain way. And I'm sure if any of the kids deviated from that, she was there to hold the boundaries, but gave you enough room to breathe, but not too much to get yourself into trouble. And it's the same how you parented.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say something else too. In my profession specifically, it isn't always easy in parenting. It was one experience with my daughter, but another with my son. Because when my son was young, I was in the chorus of the Wiz, first of all, when he was a year old. The theater work is very demanding, and it takes you away from your home a lot. So you have to create some kind of safety there in the home for the child. But no matter how safe it is, it's not the same as your being there. Mm-hmm. And that didn't quite work out for me with my son until I started working in television. And by this time, he was, he was 10 years old. And I remember going out in the park with him on a regular day because my schedule was very different. It wasn't the same as working in theater. And it was just beautiful. And I looked at him, I said, this been going on all the time? Because I was working to put food on the table. And he just looked at me and smiled. He said, yeah, Mama, it has. Because I was taking him with me all the time. When we were in the Wiz, it was easy to bring our children because I was working in a company where people were sensitive to that and created room and space for our children in the theater. They even hired a certified teacher to be with our children, to take them to the park, to do arts with them, to read. That was in the Wiz. When I went into Dreamgirls, it was a totally different situation. I was told, if you can't find a sitter for him at home, then we're going to have to give you a pink slip. Wow. Imagine that.
And at a time in your career where you weren't established.
Imagine that. And he had been accustomed to coming with me. He knew what to do and what not to do. But it was working with different people who didn't have that sensitivity. A lot of young parents are working in environments and places where there's just not room made for their children. It's a real dilemma because you have to work to provide for your child and your family. And you also have to provide a safe space for them while you're working. If you happen to be living in close proximity with your family, that kind of creates a safety net. But if you're not, it's a different circumstance and situation. And it's something as a society that I think we need to be mindful of.
Yeah, for sure. And I was fortunate as a lawyer. I made a decision to go on my own. And it was not an easy decision. But part of the reason why I wanted to go on my own is so I can control my own time and destiny and open up an office across the street from the schools in Port Washington. So I could take them to school in the morning and then they could come to my office after school and I could take them to after school activities. And I just figured out how to get my work done. But I was fortunate to be able to do that.
See? That's really good fortune.
Yeah, I feel blessed.
Yes.
But as you say, there's certain societal things that are so important where one of the big themes is how important children are so open, they're so wise, they're so wonderful. We have to create the structures that allow them to thrive and allow the parents to be parents while they're working.
Yes.
And it's really bringing back full circle to the first episode of what Brainerd is about, where after school, there's this safe program for kids who aren't just running around, not
doing anything. But not only this, what it contributes to our society, how this makes us whole as a society. We're not whole without this understanding. We're not whole without this kind of support of each other. We're not. What are we doing? What are we doing?
I think this is a perfect endpoint. And I'll tell you why. The first one we ended with profound stillness and a sense of inner wholeness. which is still here right now.
That's right.
But the real life cares about others, cares about the world, and notices where things are not perfect. So from that place of stillness, you're saying we as a society need to do better, and that you could easily be self-absorbed into your life at this stage in your life and take in all the massive success and just retire, but you're not. You're still working, you're still teaching, you're still developing, you're still doing the charitable work, because you're here to do your piece of fixing the world and making it better for other people. And for that is why, one of the many reasons, but the key reasons why I think you and I resonate so much, and how much this friendship has meant to me over the past 40 years.
And to me.
Thank you so much, Phylicia, for being on Habits of a Whole Heart, and for being who you are and bringing your light into this world. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to Habits of a Whole Heart. My name is Arnie Herz, and once again, this is part of the Humanity Matters series on hmTv. I've been very fortunate to have now my second episode with my longtime friend, Phylicia Rashad, who shared tremendous wisdom. Please tune in and please share this message. Humanity Matters is the overall name, and we really, all the podcasters have put in tremendous time and energy. We are getting, I believe we'll get 1 million views this year through the whole podcast series. Please spread the word, and let's do our part to bring a little light to somebody else's life. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great day.